Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a really groundbreaking book by Michael Hudson called And Forgive Them Their Debts. Now, Hudson is a major figure in this field, a distinguished research professor who has basically dedicated his life since the 1980s to digging into the history of ancient economics. And what he's uncovered is this incredible, forgotten history that just might flip everything you think you know about debt completely on its head. All right, so to really get this, we're going to start with a symbol that almost everyone recognizes, but its original meaning? Yeah, that's been pretty much lost to time. You see this famous line on America's Liberty Bell, and you immediately think of political freedom, right? 1776, independence, the whole deal. But that quote, it actually comes from the book of Leviticus, and it's tapping into an idea that is thousands of years older than the American Revolution. So that begs the question, what did liberty even mean back then? To find out, we have to go way, way back. And spoiler alert, the answer has almost nothing to do with politics or philosophy. It's almost entirely about economics. Get this, the very first word we have in recorded history for liberty, the Sumerian term amargi, had absolutely nothing to do with voting or free speech. It literally meant return to the mother condition. It was a royal decree, a clean slate that just wiped out people's personal debts, ended their servitude, and basically hit the economic reset button for the whole society. And this wasn't some radical one-off idea. For thousands of years, wiping the slate clean like this was just standard procedure. It was a normal and honestly an essential tool for keeping a society running smoothly. I mean, just look at this timeline. This tradition was everywhere. You had the earliest Sumerian kings doing it, the Babylonians making it a core part of their laws, the ancient Israelites with their Jubilee Year, even the Egyptian pharaohs. In fact, that's part of what the famous Rosetta Stone is even talking about, a tax debt amnesty. Canceling debts wasn't the exception, it was the rule. So, why? Why would all these powerful rulers just cancel debts? Was it because they were nice guys? Not really. It came down to one thing: survival. Just pure, hard-headed pragmatism. Look at it from their perspective. These clean slates were just smart politics. First, they stopped a small group of super wealthy creditors from gobbling up all the farmland. Second, they made sure you had a population of free citizens, not debt slaves, who could actually fight in your army and, importantly, pay taxes. And maybe most crucial of all, it kept people from getting so desperate that they decided to revolt. You can see just how practical this was in Hammurabi's famous law code. One of the laws basically says that if a farmer's crop gets wiped out by a storm or a flood, an act of God, their debts were just canceled for the year. The logic is crystal clear. Forcing a ruined farmer into bondage doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help the king. But this ancient tradition, this economic safety valve that worked for millennia, it eventually stopped. And its disappearance marks one of the biggest and maybe least understood turning points in the history of the Western world. So what happened? Well, in the city-states of Greece and later in the Roman Republic, the whole game changed. Power shifted away from a central ruler, like a king, and into the hands of powerful groups of wealthy lenders, creditor oligarchies. And these groups fought tooth and nail to make sure that debts were permanent and foreclosures were irreversible. This created two completely different worlds. In the Near East, debt was this social relationship managed by the state to keep society stable. But you jump over to Rome, and it becomes this rigid private contract. It's a tool, a weapon, really, used by the rich to strip mine the assets of everyone else and concentrate land and power in their own hands. And you can actually see this shift happening in legal documents. Take this thing called the Pros Bull. It's basically the ancient world's version of that sneaky fine print in a contract you're not supposed to read. It was a legal loophole that let creditors get around the biblical law of debt cancellation by making the borrower sign away their rights from the start. A clever trick to completely nullify a law meant to protect them. Okay, so ancient Sumeria, Rome, fascinating stuff, right? But what on earth does any of this have to do with us today, in the 21st century? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. Because our entire modern financial system, our laws, our economic theories, even our moral instincts about debt, is a direct descendant of that Roman creditor-first model. We've almost completely forgotten about the 3,000 years of successful economic history that came before it. We just treat the Roman way as the only way, as if it's a law of nature. I mean, think about the ideas we all just take for granted, that paying your debts is a sacred absolute duty, that forgiving debt creates a moral hazard, encouraging bad behavior, that a government's main job is to enforce contracts, not to worry about the overall balance of society. We've completely flipped the ancient priority on its head. We worship the payment of debt, not the health of the society it exists in. So, this is the real power of Michael Hudson's research. It shows us that our way of thinking about debt isn't timeless or inevitable at all. It was a choice, a path that was taken back in ancient Rome. And that forces us to ask a really big and maybe uncomfortable question. If these periodic clean slates were the key to economic resilience for 3,000 years, what vital tool have we left rusting in our historical toolbox?